I talked about how there's so many different types of hand applique, so I decided to bring in a special guest. This is my friend Michelle Sheler, who actually I brought her from back in the control room. She's our creative director and she created our website also. And she's going to talk to us about her technique for turning the edges for beginner hand applique.
I am. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Thank you for letting me out of the control room.
Okay, she was here anyway.
I basically do the same technique that you do. I just don't use the stabilizer inside. I use Mary Ellen's Best Press with a paintbrush. It's like a liquid application with a little mini iron. So we'll talk about doing perfect shapes first.
Okay.
This is a really, really great technique to use these mylar circles, the technique that I'm going to show you, and they will turn out perfect every single time. So I start by finding the fabric that I want. We'll just use this pretty blue batik. You just sit it down, and I use a friction pen because it irons away when we get ready to do the pressing part. It disappears, so you don't have to worry about it anymore.
Okay.
So I just quickly trace around it. And we need to mark this so that we know where to cut our seam allowances. So I get my fabric scissors, and I know they're fabric scissors because they say fabric on them.
That's so that nobody else in the family actually
That's
cuts
right.
duct tape with them.
That's right. And I have plastic scissors that I cut the mylar out too when I do my own templates. So I cut that out. So here's one that I've already cut out. And what you want to do is cut just a little bit bigger than an eighth of an or a quarter of an inch seam allowance. It's just a little bit bigger.
All right. Did you ever find one little thing? When you do smaller ones, you actually might have to cut a smaller seam allowance.
Yes, but you still want it to be bigger than what you actually think it's going to be. Okay, so now that we've cut our seam allowance a little bit bigger than it needs to be, what I'm going to do, and I'm doing this in black thread, I would normally do it in a lighter thread, being that it's a lighter fabric.
Okay.
But I am using a heavier thread than I would normally use to actually sew down the applique, because in the end I'm going to pull it pretty tight, and I don't want it to break.
Sometimes I'll actually use a hand quilting thread because that's a really heavy thread.
Yep, that's good too. Learn something new from you every day.
There we go. That's the idea.
So I'm actually just going to do a running stitch here. The stitches don't have to be perfect. I'm going to go around the whole circle. I've got one down over here. This one's in the lighter thread. Okay. And then what I'm going to do next, and I actually need to move this, is I'm going to sit this template that I traced on here back into that circle. I'm going to take that little thread and I'm going to pull it. And what that does is that cinches all the way around. And you can already see before I do anything that it's a perfect circle. So while I'm holding that pretty taut.
Here, I'll hold that.
Nope, I got it. I can do
okay.
it. I'm a professional. Let's see.
Sorry.
It's okay. So I'm going to squirt a little bit of that Mary Ellen's in here. Now this paintbrush I have here, I just got a pack of paintbrushes at the dollar store.
Okay.
And then I just cut it off so it's a little bit stiffer, because I don't want it to be like a paintbrush. I want to be able to actually dab it on there.
A little bit more like a stippling brush.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So I'm taking just a little bit. I'm just going to dampen the edges, and the way that I do it is I usually do right where I'm pulling that thread first, because that kind of helps anchor it down.
Right.
And I'm only doing like half of this size circle. You want to do just a little bit at a time. And then take your little mini iron, and as I'm doing this, I'm actually pushing towards the seam.
To get a nice crisp edge.
To get it perfect right around that edge. And I'm pressing it down. I don't know if you can hear that squeaking or not, but so now I can sort of let go of that.
Good.
Oh, and I guess I can tell you too, my little iron, what I do at home, because I don't have this fabulous ironing surface, is I have a little cup, and I just sit my iron inside that cup on my coffee table or my workstation, wherever I'm working. But now we can just sit it on the table.
And it's not burning anything.
It's not burning anything.
Okay.
All right. So you just keep going around that circle. And it doesn't have to be perfectly dry when you're doing this. You just want it to set.
Okay.
And that's what's nice about the big circles or any of those types of circles. You get more than one size in a package. Right. So I do one, and then I set it aside and let it dry, and I do another one. So here's one that's perfectly dry.
It's perfect. Check that out. All right.
And if for some reason you've got a little weird edge somewhere, you can always re-wet it and reposition it and dry it again so that it's perfect. So then at this point, you're going to pop that out just like that. And because it's mylar, nothing happened to it. You can use it again.
It's like magic.
And then I just press it again, or I use the big iron and I press it flat. And boom, there's a perfect circle.
All right.
And then you put it on your background.
So what other shapes can you do with this? Obviously the smaller perfect circles, the ovals, but what else?
Pretty much any shape that doesn't have an inside curve.
All right, so the flowers I have done have an inside valley, so you can't do it with that.
No, because you want to be able to close your shape. Where with one of those you have those points that you have to clip, so you wouldn't be able to close it and you'd have threads on either side. I just don't think that it would work.
All right.
But anything that's any kind of a shape that you can actually close that circle with no sharp points, I think
And like Michelle said earlier, the nice thing about this is there is no stabilizer under it, so it is going to be nice and soft. So I will use this technique sometimes on top of the stabilizer pieces, so then I don't have 3 layers of stabilizer, so I'll just have 1 or 2 layers, and then this will go on top, and then it's not going to be that thick to stitch through.
Right. Now I can use the same technique and make perfect shapes with mylar without them being circles. We're just not going to use the basting method.
Okay.
So I'm going to show you how to do that with a heart. So with this, I just took my own piece of mylar and I traced the heart shape that I wanted.
And you cut that mylar out with your not so good pair of scissors.
That's right, my plastic
scissors.
But I did just like you said, you have to be very careful when you're cutting this out because any little jagged anything will show up on your piece. So sometimes after I do it, I feel it, and if I feel something, you can take a piece of sandpaper or a nail file, and that will smooth that out and make it nice and smooth. So then I take my fabric, put it on, trace it around just like I did with that, and I've got one like this. So I'm going to do the same thing with this, but because I'm going to leave this on while I'm pressing it and there's no way to hold it in like the thread, I'm going to use my handy dandy double-sided tape.
Double sticks tape.
So I'm just going to put that on the back side of the template. Stick that on there.
Okay. Need to cut the valley.
Clip my little
There we go.
point there. And on this size heart, I'm actually going to wet the whole side. I'm only doing one side at a time, but I'm going to do the whole side because I want to be able to manipulate it as I go along. So I'm going to turn this over, and this is super, super, super hot. So if you wanted to use it all or some kind of a pointy thing like a toothpick, please, please do. But I feel more comfortable manipulating the fabric with my finger. So I'm just very careful.
So again, warning, that is a very, very hot iron. Keep it away from your finger.
So I'm just pressing that down. It's like glue. You can already see how perfect that is.
Yep. And the same idea when you go around the circles to try and ease it in so that you're not getting any points coming off the top of that heart.
Right, and so we just, and this is a little bit, probably a little bit more complicated than doing your technique with the glue because you are really kind of sculpting around the shape with this iron. And if you're not comfortable using the iron, it can be a little daunting.
But the advantage is it doesn't have the stabilizer on the inside.
Correct.
So when you're perfecting your hand applique stitch, you're not having to worry about that extra weight of the stabilizer in it.
Right.
So another technique, but it has its advantages.
Right. So I'm going around this. I'm probably going faster than I would if I was doing this at home.
Patience, Michelle. Patience.
But you can see it's pretty perfect. Pretty perfect. So this is what they end up looking like.
So show me a quilt that you've made using this technique.
I would be happy to.
She brought it all the way from home. I'm sure she would be happy to.
Actually, my girlfriend let me borrow it back. This was a gift that I made for her for Christmas. And all of these circles have been done using that technique.
And so how fun would that be too? You take the time turning all your circles, put those circles, base them down onto your background fabric, and she could travel with just that one piece to do that hand stitching around the piece. So it's just going to be a lot more convenient. You can take it I was going to say you could take it while you're driving, but you're not driving. When somebody else is driving,
That's right.
you can be doing your hand stitching in the passenger seat only.
Right. And I will say that these giant circles I made myself. I used a compass and I made the big circle. I don't think that there are
I don't think the big
mylar
circles come
templates.
ginormous
No,
circles.
no.
Not that big. Thank you very much, Michelle.
You're welcome.
Thanks for watching our video. Be sure you subscribe to our channel. We wouldn't want you to miss a single one. Leave a comment. We would love to hear from you.